The stars had never seemed so close to Jake Morrison as they did now. He pressed his face against the small window of the shuttle and watched the massive alien ship growing larger in front of them. The vessel looked like a crystal palace floating in space with smooth walls that glowed with soft blue light. "First time meeting aliens, Jake?" asked Lisa Coleman from the seat next to him. She was checking her tablet for the 100th time, making sure all their data was ready. "Yeah," Jake said. "You?" "Third time. But this is different. This time we're not just visitors. We're representing all of humanity." Jake nodded and felt his stomach twist with nerves. 2 months ago, Earth had sent its first message to the stars. Within days, 3 different alien species had answered back. Now he and Lisa were flying to meet them on their diplomatic ship called the Eternal Harmony. The shuttle docked with a soft bump. Jake and Lisa gathered their bags and walked through the airlock. The corridor beyond was huge, with ceilings so high they seemed to disappear into shadows. Strange music played softly from hidden speakers. "Welcome, humans," said a voice that sounded like wind chimes. A tall, thin creature approached them. Its body was made of what looked like living crystal, and light moved through it in slow waves. "I am Ambassador Zek Thara. We are honored to meet you." Jake had practiced this moment many times. "Thank you for having us. I'm Jake Morrison, and this is Lisa Coleman. We're excited to learn about your people." Zek Thara made a sound like tinkling bells, which Jake hoped was laughter. "Come, the others are waiting to meet you." They walked through corridors filled with the strangest sights Jake had ever seen. Gardens grew along the walls with plants that glowed different colors. Windows showed views of space that seemed to move on their own. Other aliens passed by, and Jake tried not to stare. The meeting room was even bigger than the corridors. Large tables sat in the center, surrounded by chairs of different sizes and shapes. 3 other aliens were already there. "These are my colleagues," Zek Thara said. "Vex Tani of the Insect Collective." She pointed to a creature that looked like a giant mantis wearing robes. Its eyes were huge and black, and it clicked its mandibles when it saw them. Thakmor of the Corothian Defense Corps. This alien was massive, covered in thick armor that looked like it was made from metal and bone. Steam came from vents in its shoulders, and Lumara of the Luminari. The third alien was hard to look at directly. It seemed to be made of pure light that constantly shifted between different colors. Jake and Lisa sat down in the human-sized chairs that had been prepared for them. The aliens all stared at them with what Jake assumed was curiosity. "Before we begin," Zek Thara said, "we must express our concern for your species. We have studied the biological data you sent with your first message. Frankly, we are amazed that your people have survived this long." Lisa looked confused. "I'm sorry?" Vexitani leaned forward, clicking rapidly. "Your species has no natural armor, no protective shell, no energy barriers. How do you survive on your world?" "Well," Jake said slowly, "we're pretty tough. Humans are survivors." The aliens exchanged looks that Jake was sure meant they thought he was crazy. Thakmor's voice was like grinding metal. "Your skin is soft tissue. One impact would penetrate it easily. Your bones are hollow calcium structures. They would shatter under minimal force." "Our bones aren't hollow," Lisa said, "and human skin is actually quite durable." Lumara's light flickered in patterns that might have been speech. Zek Thara translated. "Lumara says that your body temperature regulation seems impossible. You have no fur, no heat-generating organs, no way to adapt to temperature changes." Jake was getting frustrated. "Look, humans have been living on Earth for thousands of years. We've survived ice ages, heat waves, natural disasters. We're not as fragile as you think." "Ice ages?" Vexitani clicked in what sounded like panic. "Your planet becomes cold enough to freeze water, and you survived?" "Many times," Lisa said. "Humans are very adaptable." The aliens all began talking, at once in their different languages. Zek Thara held up a crystalline hand for silence. "We apologize. This is just very hard for us to understand. On my world, the temperature never changes more than a few degrees. Vextani's people live in carefully controlled hive cities. Thakmor's species evolved thick armor to protect against their world's harsh conditions. Lumara's people exist as pure energy and don't face physical dangers. What about your world makes it so dangerous that you needed to become so hardy? Thackamore asked. Jake thought about how to explain Earth. Well, we have weather, storms, earthquakes, volcanoes. The temperature can change by 50 degrees in one day. We have predators, diseases, radiation from space. The room went completely silent. Finally, Vexitani spoke in a whisper. Radiation from space reaches your surface? Sure. Solar radiation, cosmic rays, it's not usually a problem. Lumara's light flickered frantically. Zegathara translated. Lumara wants to know if you're in pain right now from the radiation exposure. Lisa laughed. No, we're fine. Human bodies can handle normal levels of radiation. Thackamore stood up suddenly, his armor clanking. We must contact the Galactic Council immediately. This species requires immediate protection protocols. Protection from what? Jake asked. From everything, Zegathara said sadly. Your people are clearly the most vulnerable species we have ever encountered. It's a miracle you've survived long, enough to develop space travel. We cannot allow you to continue risking your lives in the dangers of space. Jake and Lisa looked at each other. This was not how they had expected first contact to go. We appreciate your concern, Lisa said carefully. But humans really don't need protection. We've been taking care of ourselves for a long time. Vexitani clicked sympathetically. Of course you believe that. Your species has probably developed psychological defenses to cope with living in constant mortal danger. But now that you're part of the galactic community, we can keep you safe. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. These aliens weren't treating them like equals. They were treating them like children who didn't know any better. The meeting continued for 2 more hours, but it was clear that nothing Jake or Lisa said would convince the aliens that humans weren't fragile creatures in need of protection. As they returned to their shuttle, Jake wondered if asking to join the galactic community had been a mistake. This could be a problem, Lisa said quietly as their shuttle pulled away from the eternal harmony. Jake watched the crystal ship grow, smaller in the distance. Yeah, a big problem. 6 months had passed since first contact, and Beth Taylor was ready to scream. She stood at the observation deck of Luna Colony, watching 3 Carothian guards in full armor patrol the perimeter of the human settlement. Every human colonist had been assigned a protection detail, and the aliens took their job very seriously. Commander Taylor, came the deep voice of Thackamore behind her. The massive alien had to duck through doorways to fit in the human buildings. I have reviewed today's work assignments. I cannot allow your people to operate the mining equipment. Beth turned around slowly. She had learned that sudden movements made the aliens nervous. Why not? We've been mining successfully for months. The equipment vibrates at frequencies that could damage your delicate bone structure. Also, the dust particles could penetrate your soft respiratory system. Thackamore, humans have been mining on Earth for thousands of years. Coal mines, gold mines, diamond mines. We know how to protect ourselves. The alien's armor plates shifted, which Beth had learned meant he was upset. Your species has a history of dangerous behavior that proves you do not understand your own limitations. We cannot allow you to continue harming yourselves. Beth felt her patience snap. We're not harming ourselves. We're doing our jobs. Please remain calm, Commander. Elevated stress hormones could cause your cardiovascular system to fail. Beth closed her eyes and counted to 10. This was her life now. Every decision had to be approved by aliens who thought humans were made of glass. Across the colony, Pete Rodriguez was having his own problems. He stood at the bottom of a half-built habitat module, looking up at the scaffolding he was supposed to climb. 3 Vexitani guards surrounded him, clicking their mandibles nervously. Human Pete, one of them said, you cannot ascend to that height. The gravitational potential energy at 2 meters could cause fatal damage if you fall. Pete laughed. Guys, I've been a construction worker for 15 years. I've fallen off higher things than this and walked away. Impossible. Your skeletal system would fracture. Watch this. Pete grabbed the ladder and started climbing. The aliens below clicked frantically and called for medical support. Pete reached the 2nd level and began working on the support beams. The metal was heavy, but nothing he couldn't handle. He had lifted heavier things back on Earth. As he worked, he could hear the aliens below discussing emergency medical procedures. "This is ridiculous," he muttered to himself. That's when his foot slipped. Pete fell backward off the scaffolding, dropping 2 full stories to the ground below. He hit the dirt with a solid thump and lay there for a moment, getting his breath back. His shoulder hurt and he would definitely have some bruises, but nothing was broken. The aliens went crazy. "Medical emergency, medical emergency." They clicked and chirped. Within minutes, Pete was surrounded by alien medics with equipment he didn't recognize. "I'm fine," he said, sitting up and dusting himself off. "Just knocked the wind out of me." "Lie down immediately," commanded a Corothian medic. "Your internal organs have been displaced by the impact trauma." "My organs are right, where they should be. Look, I'm walking." Pete stood up and took a few steps to prove his point. The aliens stared at him like he was a ghost. They whisked him away to the medical bay, where they spent the next 3 weeks running every test they could think of. Pete kept telling them he was fine, but they were convinced he was hiding massive internal injuries. Nancy Brooks was having similar problems in the colony kitchen. She was preparing lunch when she accidentally touched a hot pan with her bare hand. "Ow," she said, pulling her hand back and looking at the small red mark on her palm. The luminary assistant she had been assigned flickered wildly. Through the translator, its panicked voice said, "You have been burned. Why are you not screaming? Why are you not unconscious from pain?" "Because it's just a little burn," Nancy said. She ran her hand under cold water for a moment, then went back to cooking. "You cannot continue. Your nerve endings have been damaged." "My nerve endings are fine. It barely hurts now." But the alien was already calling for medical assistance. Nancy found herself dragged to the medical bay where alien doctors examined her hand with intense concern. They couldn't understand how she was still conscious, let alone still able to use her hand. The situation reached a breaking point when Danny Sullivan decided he had had enough of being treated like a child. He was an explorer, a man who had climbed mountains and crossed deserts on Earth. Being stuck in the colony with constant supervision was driving him insane. One morning, he slipped past his guards and headed for the colony's outer perimeter. Beyond the settlement lay a stretch of rocky desert that the aliens had declared absolutely deadly to human life. According to them, the temperature variations, lack of water, and radiation exposure would kill any human within hours. Danny had studied the data. The desert was hot during the day and cold at night, but nothing worse than places he had hiked on Earth. He packed a small bag with water and food and set out walking. He spent 3 days in the desert, enjoying the peace and quiet. He watched alien sunrises, studied interesting rock formations, and slept under strange stars. It reminded him of camping trips back home, except with more moons in the sky. On the 3rd day, he saw aircraft approaching. The aliens had found him. 6 ships landed around his small campsite. Dozens of aliens in environmental suits poured out, carrying medical equipment and emergency shelter gear. They surrounded Danny, who was sitting by a small fire, roasting something that looked like a local root vegetable. "Danny Sullivan," Zekathara's voice came through a speaker on one of the environmental suits. "Thank the cosmic energies you're alive. How are you still conscious?" "I'm fine," Danny said, taking a bite of his dinner. "This is actually pretty relaxing. You've been exposed to deadly radiation for 72 hours. Your cellular structure should be breaking down. I feel great. Got a good tan, slept well, found some interesting minerals." The aliens spent the next hour setting up a mobile medical unit and running every scan they could on Danny. All the tests showed he was perfectly healthy, maybe even healthier than when he had left the colony. "I don't understand," Vextani clicked. "The environmental conditions should have killed you 6 times over." Danny shrugged. "I've hiked through worse places on Earth. The Sahara Desert, Death Valley, the Australian outback. This is pretty mild compared to those." The aliens exchanged looks that clearly meant they thought Danny was either lying or completely insane. As they flew back to the colony, Danny looked out at the desert he was being rescued from. It was beautiful and peaceful, and he had enjoyed every minute of his time there. But he knew the aliens would never let him go back. That night, Beth Taylor called a meeting of all the human colonists. Everyone was frustrated, angry, and tired of being treated like helpless children. "We need to do something," she said. "This can't continue. We're prisoners in our own colony." "They mean well," said Nancy, rubbing the bandages the aliens had insisted on putting over her tiny burn. "Maybe," Pete said from his bed in the medical bay, where he was still being monitored for injuries that didn't exist. "But meaning well isn't enough. They're treating us like we're made of paper." Danny nodded. "We need to show them what humans can really do. We need to prove that we're not the fragile creatures they think we are." Beth looked around at her people. They were tough, capable humans who had volunteered to build a new world among the stars. They deserved better than this. "You're right," she said. "But how do we convince an entire galaxy that they're wrong about us?" Dr. Elena Martinez had always been curious about alien medicine. When the Galactic Medical Research Center invited her to work with their team, she jumped at the chance. Maybe if she could understand how alien bodies worked, she could help them understand how human bodies work too. The research station orbited a distant star, and Elena was the only human among dozens of alien scientists. They treated her like a delicate flower, giving her the safest jobs and keeping her away from anything they thought might hurt her. "Dr. Martinez," said Dr. Kethval, a crystalline researcher whose body glowed with soft green light. "Today we will be studying radiation effects on cellular samples. You should observe from the safe room," Elena sighed. "I'm a doctor. I've worked with radiation before. On Earth, we use it to treat cancer patients." "Impossible. Even the smallest amount of radiation causes immediate cellular death in organic matter. Not in humans. We're actually pretty resistant to radiation." Dr. Kethaval made a sound like breaking glass, which Elena had learned meant he didn't believe her. "Please wait in the safe room. The radiation levels we will be using today would kill you instantly." Elena went to the observation room, but she kept thinking about what the alien had said. How could their ideas about radiation be so different? She decided to look up the numbers. What she found shocked her. The deadly radiation levels the aliens were worried about were lower than what humans experienced on a normal day on Earth. The background radiation that all humans lived with every day would be considered lethal by alien standards. She was still thinking about this when the accident happened. The radiation containment field failed. Alarms started screaming throughout the lab. Elena watched through the thick glass as the alien scientists ran for emergency shelters. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. "Evacuation, evacuation," came the announcement. "Lethal radiation levels detected in Lab 7. Elena looked at the readings on her screen. The radiation spike was high, but not higher than what she had worked with in some of the cancer wards back on Earth. Without thinking, she ran toward the lab instead of away from it. "Dr. Martinez, stop." Dr. Kethaval's voice came through the intercom. "You will die." But Elena was already in the lab. The radiation detector on her belt was clicking rapidly, but she felt fine. She could see that Dr. Vashtek, an insectoid researcher, had been trapped when the containment field failed. The alien was curled up in a corner, too scared to move. Elena ran over and grabbed Dr. Vashtek. The alien was surprisingly light. She carried him to the emergency exit and out of the lab. The whole rescue took maybe 2 minutes. When she got to the safe area, dozens of aliens stared at her like she was a ghost. "You went into the radiation zone," Dr. Kethaval said slowly. "You should be dead." "I feel fine," Elena said, checking her detector. The levels weren't that high. Those levels would kill any known species within seconds. Elena looked around at the frightened aliens. "Not humans. We live with radiation like that every day." Dr. Vashatek clicked his mandibles weakly. "She saved my life. She walked through death itself to save me." Word of Elena's radiation resistance spread quickly through the research station. Within days, alien scientists from across the galaxy were sending messages, asking if the reports were true. Could humans really survive radiation that would kill everyone else? Elena agreed to a series of tests. Under careful monitoring, she exposed herself to radiation levels that made the aliens gasp in horror. She sat in chambers that would cook most organic life. She remained conscious and healthy through exposure that should have killed her 12 times over. How is this possible? Dr. Kethaval asked after the third day of testing. Earth is a radioactive planet, Elena explained. Our sun bombards us with radiation. We have radioactive elements in our rocks, our air, our water. Humans evolved to live with it. Your planet sounds like a death world. Elena laughed. I guess it is compared to your worlds, but it's home to us. Meanwhile, on Luna Colony, Tony Clark was having a very bad day. The maintenance engineer was working on the fusion reactor's cooling system when something went wrong. Very wrong. The explosion threw Tony across the room and through a wall. The blast destroyed half of the reactor chamber and set off every alarm. In the colony, smoke and debris filled the air. Emergency teams rushed to the scene expecting to find a body. Instead, they found Tony sitting up in the rubble looking annoyed. My lunch got vaporized, he complained, holding up the twisted remains of his meal container. Beth Taylor arrived with the emergency team. She stared at Tony, who had a broken arm and some burns on his face, but was otherwise talking normally. Tony, you were at the center of a fusion reactor explosion. Yeah, I know, I was there. He stood up slowly, favoring his injured arm. The primary coolant line must have cracked. I should have caught that yesterday. The alien emergency team that had rushed to help stood frozen in shock. Vashtek, who had come from the research station specifically to help with human medical emergencies, clicked frantically. He should be atomized. There should be nothing left. How is he speaking? How is he moving? Because I'm fine, Tony said. Well, mostly fine. This arm hurts pretty bad. You need immediate medical attention, Vashtek clicked. Yeah, probably. But it's not an emergency. I've been hurt worse. The aliens couldn't believe what they were seeing. They had measured the explosion. The energy release should have vaporized any organic matter within 10 meters. Tony had been only 2 meters from the blast center. Dr. Elena Martinez arrived from the research station to examine Tony. By now, word was spreading through the galactic community that humans might not be as fragile as everyone thought. The explosion created temperatures over 3,000 degrees, Vashtek told Elena. The pressure wave should have liquefied his bones. Elena checked Tony's injuries. Broken arm, second-degree burns, some cuts from flying debris. Painful, but not life-threatening. Humans are tougher than you think, she said. But how? Your bodies appear to be soft tissue over fragile bone structures. Appearances can be fooling. Human bones are incredibly strong. Our skin and muscle can absorb tremendous impact. Our organs are well protected inside our bodies. Elena looked around at the aliens who had gathered to witness this impossible survival. I think it's time we had a serious talk about human biology. She called for a full demonstration. Over the next week, human volunteers from across the colony showed the aliens what they could really do. They lifted weights that should have crushed their bones. They survived temperature changes that should have killed them. They recovered from injuries that should have been permanent. Lisa Coleman arrived from Earth with a team of human scientists. They brought videos from Earth showing humans doing things that amazed the aliens. Humans climbing mountains in freezing cold. Humans working in deserts hotter than most alien worlds. Humans surviving accidents that should have been instantly fatal. Your species evolved on a world that is actively trying to kill you, Dr. Kethaval said after watching the videos. No wonder you became so durable. Earth isn't trying to kill us, Lisa said. It's just active. Weather changes, earthquakes, storms, predators, diseases. It made us tough. Tough enough to survive things that would kill us, Vashtek clicked, quietly. Word was spreading through the galaxy now. The fragile humans weren't fragile at all. They were incredibly, impossibly durable. Some species were amazed. Others were becoming worried. Elena received a message from the Galactic Council. They wanted to meet with human representatives immediately. There were questions that needed answers. Questions about just how tough humans really were and what that meant for the rest of the galaxy. I think, Elena told Tony as he worked one-handed to repair the reactor. We're about to have some very interesting conversations. Admiral Kevin Wright stepped off his shuttle and onto the massive space station that served as the Galactic Council's headquarters. He had been promoted quickly after the Luna Colony incidents, mainly because humanity needed someone with military experience to handle what was becoming a very tense situation. The station was enormous, built to house representatives from over 200 different species. Kevin had studied the layout, but seeing it in person was overwhelming. Corridors stretched in all directions, some filled with water for aquatic species, others with different atmospheric mixtures for beings who breathed gases humans had never heard of. "Admiral Wright," came a familiar voice. Ambassador Zekathara approached, his crystalline body glowing dimmer than usual. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Ambassador. I understand there are some concerns about my people." Zekthara's light flickered in what Kevin had learned meant worry. "More than concerns, I'm afraid. The galaxy is divided about humanity's place in our community." They walked through corridors filled with aliens Kevin didn't recognize. Many of them stared at him as he passed. Some seemed curious, others seemed afraid. A few looked angry. "It's been 3 weeks since the reports from Luna Colony spread," Zekthara continued. 3 weeks since your Dr. Martinez survived lethal radiation and your engineer survived a fusion explosion. The reaction has been intense." Kevin nodded. He had seen some of the messages Earth was receiving. Some species wanted to study humans. Others wanted to trade with them. But some wanted humans removed from the galaxy entirely. They entered a large meeting hall where dozens of alien representatives waited. Kevin recognized a few species from the files he had studied, but most were completely new to him. "Humans," said a voice like grinding stone. Kevin turned to see a massive creature covered in what looked like living rock. "I am Warden Grixtall of the Stone Builders. We have questions." "I'm here to answer them," Kevin said. "Is it true that your species regularly survives injuries that would kill other known life forms?" "We're more durable than you first thought, yes." A creature that looked like a walking tree raised one of its branch arms. "I am Root Singer Thelanis. My people have grown in peace for 10,000 years. We do not understand violence or conflict. Are humans a warrior species?" Kevin chose his words carefully. "Humans can be warriors when we need to be. We're also farmers, artists, teachers, healers. We're complex." "But you can fight," said a new voice. This came from something that looked like a metal spider with too many legs. "I am War Prime Skexith of the Razor Caste. My people are bred for battle. We have natural armor, poison, and weapons. Yet we here humans survived things that would destroy us." "How?" "Evolution," Kevin said. "Our planet made us tough." "Show us." Kevin looked around the room. "Show you what?" "Prove that humans are as durable as the reports claim. We need to see for ourselves." Kevin had expected this. He pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing video footage from Earth. "This is a human sporting event called football," he said. The aliens watched, as humans in minimal padding crashed into each other at high speed. Several aliens made sounds of distress. "They're attacking each other," War Prime Skexith clicked. "Why aren't they dying?" "It's a game. For fun." Kevin showed more videos. Humans rock climbing without safety equipment. Humans working in extreme heat and cold. Humans recovering from car crashes that crumpled metal around them. "This is impossible," whispered Root Singer Thelanis. "These impacts should shatter bone." "Human bones are very strong," Kevin said. "Our muscles can absorb tremendous impact. Our organs are well protected." "But why?" asked Warden Grixtall. "Why did your evolution create such durability?" Kevin pulled up images of Earth. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, lightning storms. Our planet is dynamic. Weather changes quickly. The ground moves. The atmosphere is unstable. Only the strong survived. The room fell silent as the aliens processed what they were seeing. Finally, a new voice spoke up. It came from something that looked like a floating jellyfish made of pure energy. "I am Mind Touch Yelsera of the Fear Seekers. My people feed on terror and anxiety. The reports about humans have created more fear in the galaxy than we have felt in centuries. Fear of what? Kevin asked. Fear of you. If humans are this durable, what else can you do? Are you a threat to peaceful species? Kevin felt the tension in the room increase. This was the real issue. Not curiosity about human durability, but fear of what humans might do with it. Humans are not conquerors, he said firmly. We came to the galaxy looking for friends, not enemies. But you could be conquerors, War Prime Skeksis said. If your species is as tough as it appears, you could overwhelm most civilizations. We don't want to overwhelm anyone. We want to learn, to trade, to share knowledge. Easy words to say, said another voice. This came from a creature Kevin didn't recognize, something with too many eyes and skin that shifted colors. I am Truthseer Morgeth. My species can detect deception. You believe what you say, but can you speak for all humans? Kevin hesitated. Could he promise that no human would ever use their natural advantages for harm? Could any species make that promise? No, he said honestly. I can't speak for every human who will ever live, but I can tell you about human history. Yes, we've had wars, yes, we've fought each other, but we've also worked together to build amazing things. We've saved each other from disasters. We've shared resources with those who need help. Dr. Amy Stevens entered the hall at that moment. She was carrying a large case full of equipment and had several alien assistants with her. Admiral, she said, I'm sorry I'm late. The shuttle was delayed. Kevin introduced Dr. Stevens to the assembly. Dr. Stevens is our leading expert on human biology. She's been working with alien scientists to understand how our evolution created our physical capabilities. Amy set up her equipment and began her presentation. She showed detailed scans of human bones, muscle, and organs. She explained how human skin could stretch and absorb impact. She demonstrated how human joints could move in ways that would break other species. The key, she said, is that humans evolved to be generalists. We're not the strongest species or the fastest or the smartest, but we're good enough at everything to survive almost anything. But surely there are limits, said Warden Grixtal. Surely there are things that can kill humans. Of course, Amy said. We're not immortal. We can die from extreme injury, disease, old age, but our survival range is much wider than most species. She showed more data. Comparisons between human tolerance levels and those of other species. In almost every category, humans could survive conditions that would kill most other known life forms. This is why some species fear you, Mind Touch Yelsara said. You are walking disaster survivors. You thrive in conditions that create fear in others. Kevin understood now. To species that had evolved in stable, safe environments, humans looked like monsters. Not because they were evil, but because they were so tough that they seemed almost invulnerable. What do you want from us? He asked the assembly. The aliens exchanged looks. Finally, War Prime Skeksis spoke. Proof that you will not abuse your advantages. Proof that you can be trusted with such power. What kind of proof? A test. A demonstration. Of human character under extreme circumstances. Kevin felt a chill. What kind of test? We will discuss this among ourselves, Zekthara said. You will have our answer soon. As Kevin left the assembly hall, he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge yet. Not a test of their durability, but a test of their character. And the fate of human-alien relations might depend on whether they passed. The alarm started screaming at 3 a.m, station time. Chief Rachel Morgan was pulled from her sleep by the sound of emergency broadcasts echoing through Unity Prime, the massive space station that served as the galactic capital. All personnel to emergency stations, gravitational anomaly detected. Station structural integrity compromised. Rachel threw on her clothes and ran to the command center. What she saw on the screens made her stomach drop. A nearby star had collapsed. Without warning, creating a gravity well that was pulling Unity Prime apart piece by piece. Lieutenant Sam Davis was already at his post, monitoring the evacuation efforts. Chief, We've got 20,000 beings on this station. The outer rings are breaking away. Sections 7 through 12 are in full structural failure. Admiral Kevin Wright's voice came over the communications system. All human personnel, report for emergency duty. We have a situation. Rachel met Kevin in the central command room where dozens of alien officials were arguing in multiple languages. The situation was clear from the tactical displays. Unity Prime was being torn apart by gravitational stress, and thousands of aliens were trapped in sections that were too dangerous for normal rescue operations. Ambassador Zekathara approached them, his crystalline body flickering with stress patterns. Admiral Wright, we need your help. But I must warn you, the areas where beings are trapped are experiencing gravitational forces that would crush most rescue equipment. The radiation levels are lethal. The structural damage makes access nearly impossible. Kevin looked at the tactical display. What are you saying? We're saying, said War Prime Skexith, his metal shell clanking as he moved, that these rescues are suicide missions. Anyone who goes into those areas will die. Rachel studied the readings. The gravity in the damaged sections was fluctuating, between 2 and 8 times normal. Radiation levels were spiking to levels that would cook most organic life. Structural debris was falling constantly, and the atmosphere was leaking out in several areas. How long before those sections break away completely? She asked. 2 hours, maybe 3, Sam said. Rachel looked around the room at the alien officials. They all looked hopeless. To them, this was an impossible situation. The beings in the damaged sections were already dead. They just didn't know it yet. We'll go, Rachel said. The room went silent. Chief Morgan, Zekathara said carefully, perhaps you don't understand the conditions in those areas. I understand perfectly. High gravity, lethal radiation, structural, collapse, atmosphere loss sounds like a Tuesday on Earth. Kevin nodded. How many human rescue personnel do we have on station? 12, Sam said. Plus the emergency equipment. That's not enough for 20,000 beings, War Prime Skexith pointed out. It's enough to get started, Rachel said. We'll make multiple trips. The aliens exchanged looks that clearly said they thought the humans had lost their minds. But as Rachel and her team prepared their equipment, something interesting happened. Alien rescue workers began volunteering to help, even though they knew they couldn't survive in the damaged areas. We can't go where you're going, said Vexitani, clicking his mandibles nervously. But we can help coordinate from safe areas. We can guide you to where beings are trapped. Dr. Elena Martinez arrived with medical supplies. I'll set up triage, stations in the safe zones. When you bring people out, I'll be ready. The first rescue mission launched 30 minutes later. Rachel led a team of 4 humans into Section 7, where the gravity was running at 6 times normal, and radiation levels would have killed most species in minutes. Moving in high gravity was exhausting, but Rachel had trained in centrifuges that could simulate even higher forces. The radiation made her detector click constantly, but the levels were still within human tolerance. The real problem was the structural damage. Corridors were crushed. Walls had collapsed, and debris was everywhere. This way, came Vexitani's voice through her communicator. Life signs detected in Section 7C. Rachel found them. 12 luminari, beings of pure energy, trapped in a collapsed chamber. The energy field that kept them stable was failing. In normal circumstances, it would take heavy machinery to clear the debris blocking the exit. Rachel and her team did it by hand. They lifted metal beams that weighed tons in the high gravity. They cleared rubble that would have required construction equipment. When they were done, they carried the luminary to safety, their bodies providing the stable energy field the beings needed to survive. Impossible, War Prime Skexith said as he watched the humans work. Those beams weigh 30 tons in that gravity field. Humans are strong, Kevin said simply. The rescues continued for the next 6 hours. Human teams went into areas where the station was literally falling apart around them. They carried out beings who had given up hope. They worked in conditions that would have killed rescue equipment, let alone living beings. Tony Clark, despite his still healing arm from the reactor accident, worked to stabilize failing life support systems in areas where the atmospheric pressure was fluctuating wildly. Pete Rodriguez climbed through collapsed ventilation shafts that were too narrow for anyone wearing protective gear. Danny Sullivan navigated through sections where the artificial gravity had failed completely, floating through debris fields, while carrying injured aliens to safety. Each successful rescue amazed the alien observers more. Humans were doing things that should have been impossible. They were working in conditions that defied every safety protocol in the galaxy. The final rescue was the most dramatic. Nancy Brooks found a group of refugee families trapped in a dining hall where the ceiling was slowly collapsing. The gravity field was unstable, switching between crushing force and zero gravity without warning. Radiation was pouring in from a damaged reactor. Nancy made 7 trips to get everyone out. Each time, she had to adapt to changing conditions that would have disoriented or killed most beings. She carried families through areas where the floor was red hot from radiation exposure. She navigated through debris fields in zero gravity, while aliens clung to her for safety. When it was over, the humans had saved over 8,000 beings. Not everyone, but far more than anyone had thought possible. The alien officials stood in stunned silence as they watched the rescued beings reunite with their families. Many of the survivors were species that had never seen humans before, and they looked at their rescuers with something close to worship. "I don't understand," Root Singer, Tilanis said quietly. "You risked your lives for beings you had never met. Why?" Rachel was exhausted, covered in radiation burns and bruises, but she smiled. "Because that's what you do. When people need help, you help them. Even when it's dangerous? Especially when it's dangerous." Ambassador Zek Thara approached Admiral Kevin Wright. "I owe your species an apology. We thought your durability made you a threat. We didn't realize it made you protectors." Kevin looked around the room at his tired rescue teams and the thousands of grateful aliens they had saved. Humans learned long ago that being tough doesn't mean being cruel. It means being able to help when others can't. War Prime Skeksis' metal shell clinked as he moved closer. "The Galactic Council was wrong about your people. We will recommend that humans be given full membership status, with a special designation." "What kind of designation?" "Emergency response specialists. When disasters happen, when rescues are needed in impossible conditions, we will call on humans." Rachel laughed, despite her exhaustion. "So we went from being too fragile to live in space to being the galaxy's emergency response team?" "Life is full of surprises," Elena said. 6 months later, Human Rescue Services had bases throughout the galaxy. Teams of humans worked with alien coordinators to respond to disasters that had once been considered hopeless. They saved beings from volcanic worlds, rescued crews from ships caught in radiation storms, and evacuated colonies from planets with unstable weather. Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral, stood on the observation deck of Unity Prime, watching human children play with alien children in the station's central park. The human kids were playing what looked like tag, running and jumping in ways that made the alien parents nervous. But the alien children were laughing as they tried to keep up. "Still worried about us being too fragile?" Elena asked, joining him at the window. Jake watched as his daughter Katie climbed a tree that the alien children considered impossibly tall, then hung upside down from a branch to wave at her friends below. "I think," Jake said, "they're starting to understand that fragile was never the right word for humans." Below them, the galaxy continued its daily business, a little bit safer knowing that when disaster struck, humans would be there to help. Not because they were invulnerable, but because they were tough enough to go where others couldn't and brave enough to try.